Hello coders, in the Git Pro series brought to you by Coder Geeks, we'll be learning about Git and GitHub from basics to advanced. In this lecture we are going to cover version control systems and Git basics. No technical stuff, just what Git is, why it came about in a land full of version controls, and what sets it apart and why so many people are using it. The very first question that may arise in your mind is what version control is and why we need to know about this. So, version control is a system that records changes to a file or a set of files over time so that you can recall that specific version later. Why should we care about this? If you are a developer or a designer, you may want to keep every version of your code or layout with yourself, so a version control system would be the best choice for that purpose. It allows you to revert selected files back to a previous state, revert the entire project back to a previous state, compare changes, and see who introduced an issue and when that issue was introduced. It is generally useful when you screw something or lost files. You can recover the previous version then easily. There are basically three kinds of version control system: local version control systems, centralized, and distributed. Local version control system had a simple database that kept all the changes to the files under revision control. One of the most popular version control tool was called a revision control that works by keeping patch sets. Patch sets is the difference between files. It can then recreate what any file looked like at any point in time by adding up all the patches. The major issue in revision control was collaboration. The collaboration was not possible in local version control system. That's why centralized version control systems was developed. These systems have a single server that contains all the version files, and the number of clients check out from that central place. This setup also has some serious downsides. The most obvious is the single point of failure that the centralized server represents. If a hard disk of the central server becomes corrupted, all the data will be lost. This is where distributed version control system steps in. It includes Git, Mercurial, Bitbuckets, etc. In distributed version control system, clients fully clone the repository on their drive, including the file history, which can benefit in case if the server dies. Then the client repository can be used as a backup. Now coming toward Git, how Git landed into the world full of version control system. Linux kernel was an open source project and they needed a version control to manage the patches, so they began using Bitkeeper in 2002. But things didn't go well, and in 2005 the relationship between Linux kernel and the commercial company that developed Bitkeeper broke down, and the tool's free of charge status was revoked. Then Linus Torvalds, the creator of Linux, came up with the idea to develop their own tool based on the sum of the lessons they learned while using Bitkeeper. And in 2005 they developed their own version control known as Git. So what is Git? Git is a version control system that thinks of its data more like a series of snapshots. With Git, every time you commit or save the state of your project, Git basically takes a picture of what all your files look at that moment and shows a reference to that snapshot. To be efficient, if files have not changed, Git doesn't store the file again. Git thinks about its data more like a streams of snapshots. In Git, almost every operation is local, so the max speed can be achieved. Because you have the entire history of the project right there on your local disk, most operations seems almost instantaneous. In Git, everything is checksum before it is stored and is then referenced by that checksum. It means that it's almost impossible to change the contents of any file or directory without Git knowing about it. The mechanism that Git uses for this checksumming is called SHA-1 hash. When we do actions in Git, nearly all of them only add data to the Git database, so it is hard to get the systems to do anything that is not undoable or make it trace the data in any way. That's it for today's lecture. In the next lecture, we'll be learning how to install Git on different platforms like Windows, Mac, and Linux. Then subscribe our channel and share the video if you like it. Thank you.